lot of artists, when they're trying to say something new, they try to say it kind of visually, where a lot of what I do is how can I say this with a technology in a new way that hasn't been done. We're at Nexus Productions. It's primarily an animation studio. It's been an animation studio for about 15 years, doing commercials, idents, short films, and recently interactive projects. I don't really work as an artist. I'm a designer. I enjoy storytelling, I enjoy color, but it's kind of, I guess, coming from more of a computer background, it's more of a problem-solving thing. So if pitch came into me and it was like, oh, we want this to do this, and I would say, all right, how can I say this better in a different way? And I didn't necessarily approach it as kind of what's my artistic vision that I can push through your work. It's kind of like, how can I best tell that type of work in which other kind of form I want to tell it. Which Project Runway was a one-on-one crowd-based and interactive installation. The idea was that you take a single person and make them the center, make them the one that's interacting, and make up the stories in their head about what the project is. Carp and Seagull is an interactive short film that is a tragedy about one man and his fall from grace. Original kind of seed was about 2 years ago in New York. I did a workshop at I-Beam, and it was a week-long workshop about coming up with some code and kind of working with some other people. And I bought some models, I made some models, and then I actually did in C++, did the whole story in about a week, and that was the project after a week of workshop. Coming back to the UK, I really want to revisit that. I wanted to just polish everything a bit too much, and some of the forms that I was exploring were really interesting, but I couldn't kind of do that, so I moved onto WebGL, and at the time it was coming out, and it was kind of, all right, maybe using some of these assets and kind of exploring some of this bit. So I did lots of small experiments with it. And then once I kind of got a piece that was, I thought, quite interesting, and actually still kind of looked like that original C++ project from 2 years previously in a way, I just decided, all right, I'm going to actually turn this into a film of sorts. It's basically about one man, Masato, who's referencing this Arthur Miller article that I read about the tragedy of the common man, where he was saying that the common man can be tragic. It doesn't have to be a king or anything like that, because and it's something about his dignity and him fighting for his dignity, and that's what this story is about. It's about the fisherman being outfished by a seagull and trying to regain that particular part of himself where it says, I am the king of my realm. What happens when he tries to reclaim that mantle? Well, I'm quite interested in what the future of kind of characters are. So, not necessarily what video game characters are, but the representation of what characters can be, and the way technology is changing how characters and stories respond to you, talk to you, live with you, and the way that anything from social media to just AR to anything, if you're going to start connecting to these characters more and more, to your own avatars or wherever, that's going to change. It's changing daily. The story takes place in 4 sections, and each section is a diorama that is a particular scene that users explore before they move on to the next chapter. So, and within each diorama scene, you have 2 sides. You have the real world and you have the netherworld. And actions that happen in one affect actions that happen in the other. So if you do something over here, like he fishes, his character, his mirror image will fish. If we go to chapter 2, interact with the seagull, which I think has a few things going on at the moment, and you can turn the cube to the other side, and the Yuki-onna will have done other bits. Yuki Onna is from Japanese folktale. That's kind of the inspiration for it. But she's a spirit mirror of the seagull in the real world. A lot of the piece is about exploring these kind of 3D dioramas and these kind of virtual spaces. So there's two mechanics. There is clicking and there's turning. So everything you see has a point and click mechanism, or you can click on it lots of different times and different things happen, and there's a structure involved that it figures out where you've clicked, what you're doing, and it moves the story along in different ways. The story does not move forward just based on the users. After timeouts or certain things, it will trigger its own actions, its own narrative. If a user just wants to sit and watch it, they'll miss lots of it and stuff will happen, but the main points, which is the end of each chapter, those actions will still occur after a set time limits. What's interesting is when you write a story or do an animation or a short film, it's, you are kind of the master of your own domain. You're the authoritarian person. But here it's less of an authoritarian text and more of an authoritarian space. I control everything that happens within this space, but I don't control how the user is going to do. So it brings its own kind of challenges where I'm not the totalitarian dictator I could be on a short film where every single pixel and interaction is timed to perfection. So I think for me it's actually harder because I've given over this control to the user, but at the same time it's more rewarding if I can solve those problems.